cruising in my lane fast, call it high speed. I've been working hard, yeah, I've been working nightly. If you think you'll win, nah, likely. I be taking shots, yeah, cold-blooded, icy. Watching numbers grow is what I call sightseeing. In the front row, run it up when they hype me. The following grows, they know how to ignite me. Call me CEO, I've been running right, see. And I ain't playing games, I create my own lane, making pleasure out of pain, turning losses into...
What is up, Steelers Nation? It's your boy Daniel J coming back with you with another post-game show. As unfortunately, I come back with bad news, and the Pittsburgh Steelers lose to the Baltimore Ravens 16-14, effectively kind of throwing the playoff hopes out the window. Whereas in the thumbnail shows, as they fly away from us and the coaching staff and Mike Tomlin, as the Pittsburgh Steelers are now, in my opinion, on direct course with uncharted territory. This is going to be the first time in a long time, I think, that the Pittsburgh Steelers may end up with a losing record. Since before Ben Roethlisberger was a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers, you got to go all the way back to 2003. In order for that to not happen, the Pittsburgh Steelers need to win every single game. As the competition may not be to the same level or, be as difficult as what it's been thus far in the season, to see this team win the remaining games on the schedule would be, it would be great to see, but I don't, it'd be a little bit unrealistic at this point. There's too many mistakes. There's too many issues going on with this team. You have, a team that was starting to create an identity for itself by running the ball and getting a lot of, getting productive yards on the ground, to effectively just letting that go in the second half, not really trying to get that going. Najee Harris had, I think, 2 attempts in the second half. It was a poor outing for the Steelers offensively. Defensively, you look at the score, 16 points. You think that the Pittsburgh Steelers played well defensively. However, when you look at the context behind it, going up against Anthony Brown, a third-string rookie undrafted this year, getting his first action as a NFL player, and you see that, they're able to still continue to move the ball on the ground. You see that, they throw on 1st and 10 from the 1-yard line out of their own end zone with Anthony Brown, establishing and forcing the Steelers to play a little bit more honest, and thus hindering them in the rushing department. I think that when you look at this game across the board, the Steelers lost. They were out-coached. They were out-executed. They lost the trenches. And in all phases of the game, I think they lost, including special teams. When I look at these games, I've said it before, that I'm starting to look at these games from a different light. I want to see progression. I want to see this team move forward. And I think there was some good there. But at the end of the day, I think there was some real regression. For a team that hadn't turned the ball over in over a month, handed the ball to the Baltimore Ravens 3 different times. Now, Mitch Trubisky came out in his post conference saying that he was trying to be overly aggressive, trying to, create a spark, which is odd. Well, not odd, but it's weird for him to say, given the fact that he was benched because they were needing to create a spark in a game where Kenny Pickett came in and threw 3 interceptions himself. And so, I don't know if he's just saying that or trying to point out something like, hey, don't blame me, Pickett did the same thing. I kind of saw that based on what he was trying to say there, kind of scapegoat there. I didn't like that, by the way. But, he did take accountability. He said that those interceptions were on him. And for that, I do, think that he did well at that portion. But with that being said, Kenny Pickett out with a possible concussion. I think this is his 7th or 8th going back into college. There's a little bit of concern there. This is his 2nd one this year, so I think that the Steelers may not go with. I think Kenny Pickett's not going to be playing next week against Carolina. So the questions already have sparked up. Who do you go with? Do you stick with Mitch Trubisky? You go with Mason Rudolph in the next game. I for one wouldn't mind seeing Mason in there, seeing what he can do. For one, if he plays well, he does a good job. You know, Kenny Pickett comes back. You play Kenny the rest of the year. You move Mason into QB2. That increases his draft value, increases his how much teams are willing to pay for him. You have teams like, for instance, the Saints, who might be looking for a quarterback this offseason who don't have a first-round draft pick. Even the Broncos with Russell Wilson. I mean, I know how much they're paying him and what they gave up for him. But if he continues to play poorly, I mean, there's a situation where that might be a situation where he could go be a backup out there. Regardless, he could put himself in a possibility for a starting gig somewhere, especially for a team that needs a quarterback, that doesn't have a high first-round pick, or doesn't have a first-round pick to begin with. And he could turn this into a comp pick, depending on how much money he can get. This year he hasn't played whatsoever. And so if he comes out against a team that, could be a favorable matchup in Carolina, you can see that the only thing that teams would be able to judge Mason Rudolph on would be on this performance, because this would probably be the only game he'd play. And that could increase his draft. I mean, his free agent value in the free agency market. And so I wouldn't be opposed to it. I think that Mitch Trubisky was able to move the ball, but in those weighty downs, in those key situations, it was his decision-making and his inability to come off the receiver with his eyes that would eventually cause the 3 picks. And so, when it comes to the offense in total, they get like an F for me, man. They weren't able to run the ball. There was pressure constantly. Kenny Pickett was knocked out of the game due to a concussion on a play that I think, you want to talk about player safety and things of that nature. He was literally grabbed by the face mask and thrown into the ground. In my opinion, that should have been a penalty. And there's no need for that type of play on the field. It is what it is. I get he was a runner and whatnot. You look at you look at the penalty that was thrown on Mitch Trubisky for the pass, for roughing the passer, and I think that was less egregious than the one against Kenny Pickett, in my opinion. Now, in this game, Mitch Trubisky was 22 of 30 for 276 yards, 9.2 yard average, 1 touchdown, 3 horrible interceptions. He was sacked 1 time for 5 yards. Quarterback rating is 73. Kenny Pickett, he only had 1 attempt. That attempt went into the, was deflected on a dump off while he was having pressure on him. He went to pass 2 other times. Ended up with him running. I don't know what was available down the field. And in this game, it's hard to say whether or not the Steelers, what they do, if they move, they get aggressive, they don't be aggressive. I see this game, though, if Kenny Pickett finishes this game, I don't think he throws 3 interceptions. I think he's a little bit careful with the ball. And even though I don't see the Steelers putting up too much more points, I don't think they need to put much more points to win this game. And so I do think that if Kenny Pickett would have finished this game, there's a good possibility that the Steelers are going home with a dub here and still in playoff contention. But that didn't happen. Mitch Trubisky came in and basically threw the ball to the Ravens. Rushing, we had Najee Harris. He was 12 carries for 33 yards, 2.8 average, 1 touchdown, 8-yard long. Kenny Pickett he had 2 carries for 16 yards. I mean, right there, he had half the carries or half the yards in 2 runs than Najee Harris did. With a long of 13. Jalen Warren was 3 of 11, 3.7 average. And Benny Snell had 2 carries for 4 yards. I mean, basically, at the end of the day, you're looking at 20 carries for 65 yards. That's not going to cut it. The trenches, the offensive line wasn't able to do much. They weren't getting any traction. They weren't getting any push. for majority of the game. And, you're looking at 65 yards. That's not going to cut it. That's not been the formula that the Steelers have used or done to win up to this point. And so, I talked about this in the pregame where you're going to want to make the Baltimore Ravens get away from their identity, get away from what they want to do, and put the ball in the hands of their inexperienced and, quarterbacks or quarterback. I didn't anticipate there be a change during the game. And yet it seems like the Baltimore Ravens were the ones that were able to do that. And the fact is, though, I don't think they needed to do that. There was never a point in this game where the game was so out of reach that the Steelers had to go away from the running game. And so for that, I fault Matt Canada on this game for coming away from the going away from the run, going away from the identity that you wanted to set and establish. That in my opinion, gives the play calling like probably a D. The quarterbacks I give an F. Mitch Trubisky threw the ball away too many times. It was just you can't do that. I thought he did some good things, but you can't do that. It was just piss poor, man. I don't want to see Mitch Trubisky play again this year. It's that bad. Najee Harris and the rushing game, it wasn't their best outing. It really wasn't. I mean, across the board, this team just crapped the bed and beat themselves. I'll give them probably a D as well. The receiving, George Pickens has targeted 3 times for 3 catches and had some fantastic catches. He had one where he caught with his hands on the sideline, and he had 2 guys on him, and they were trying to break up the ball, and his hands are so strong, and his arms, his ability to catch is so well that he just held on to it and walked out of bounds. This is the second time I've seen a play or a pass that he's caught in a similar fashion. That guy's a beast. They need to throw the ball to him more times. The deep ball to Deontay, I don't get it. I don't understand why you're throwing up a 50-50 ball to a guy with safety coverage over the top when you have George Pickens on the other side, who's a freak and who's going to jump up and come down with the ball more times than not. He's what you were hoping that, you would have gotten in Claypool, a tall, speedy, fast, physical receiver, except this guy actually lives up to what you're wanting out of him, up to the physicality, up to the ability of jumping up and getting the ball. And I don't understand that. I don't understand that decision. I don't blame or spot that on Canada, because when you see the safety going over the top and you see him kind of lurk in that direction and you're not eyeing off the receiver and you're looking in that direction the entire way, that's on the quarterback. And so, the quarterback lost this game. Mitch Trubisky was never a QB that I thought was a savior of this team or even a guy that could be a potential replacement for Ben Roethlisberger. I thought, when the Steelers got him, he'd be a bridge guy. And unfortunately, he thought he could be more. And I think he tried to put it out there, whether it's for the Steelers or for the next year for the teams that are looking at this game that potentially could be looking at a quarterback. Maybe he was trying to make some splash and he got overly aggressive, trying to, put some balls that he shouldn't have been. And it bit him in the butt, it bit us all. And so, offensively, I can't. I think the receivers and George Pickens and Pat Freiermuth did fantastic. Steven Sims was 4 for 30. Deontay Johnson had 6 receptions for 82 yards. He was targeted 8 times. I thought Deontay did okay. It's not his fault that the quarterback, overthrew him and, put the ball in a bad position and made a bad decision. And so, and that is what it is. But I thought George Pickens played another fantastic game. He needs to be treated as the number one. I think the Steelers need to give him the old Randy Moss treatment where 70% of your pass plays go in his direction, because he's that good. He's that good. He's probably the best player on this team. Respect to their position and how much better they are compared to everybody in their room. So for instance, you look at Najee Harris, some will argue that, hey, you should run Jaylen Warren more, this, that, and the third. You look at Kenny Pickett, you look at Mitch Trubisky. Up until this game, there's been some people debating whether or not they should have stuck with Mitch or if Kenny's that, great. There ain't no debate in the wide receiver room as far as who is the best receiver there is. And so with that being said, Um, he is a bright spot on this team and a person that the Steelers should consider building around. I get he has some of these. He had those issues about last week, kind of getting frustrated, not getting the ball. But that's a guy that wants to win, because if you go on back and you look at that game, and you look at Connor Hayward catching that touchdown, you know who's celebrating behind him? It's George Pickens. And so, he's just a guy that wants to win. And like Tomlin said, you rather say whoa than sick him. So defensively, Minka Fitzpatrick had the most tackles. He had 11, 6 solo. Terrell Edmonds had 9 tackles. 3 of them were solo. And, that's not a good stat, that when your two safeties have have most of the tackles, and it was mainly against the run. And these are running backs that the safeties were tackling. That's not a good sign. Your safeties aren't supposed to be leading your team in tackles. That's when you had a bad game defensively, is when your safeties are leading the team in tackles. Miles Jack had 7, 4 solo. Devin Bush had 6, 4 solo. Devin was okay. I think Miles Jack was. I mean, they got ran all over. So you know what? I think they were bad. The front line is not playing as well. I think. I hate to say this, but I think Cam Hayward it's either health or the odometer is just, getting up there for him. He's getting kind of up there in age. This has not been his best year, but he's also been dealing with a lot of injuries. It just doesn't seem the same. And, Martavius Adams was getting abused by Linderbaum. It just wasn't, it was not a good game for the trenches. A healthy TJ Watt is severely missed by this defense. You can't put that is you just now see how much it's missed a healthy TJ Watt, because he's a difference maker. Definitely is. The Steelers had no interceptions, no turnovers. They had an opportunity for a fumble, didn't get it. At the end of the game, there's been a little bit of controversy, and let me know in the live chat what you guys think about it. As far as the onside kick, should the Steelers have kicked the onside kick or kicked it off? I personally would have rather have seen the onside kick. At the end of the day, what's going to happen in that scenario is you give yourself an opportunity to get the ball back. 1 and 2. Let's just say you don't. The object of that drive for the Baltimore Ravens is to get a first down, right? And so if they get a first down, that ices the game, that puts the game out. It's over, right? If they don't get a first down, they kick a field goal. They only go up by 5. They're still down. You still have an opportunity with 2 minutes left, a little bit less than 2 minutes left on the clock, to go and score a touchdown. I know it's asking a lot, but the Steelers were able to move the ball down the field. They were just choking when it came time to put the ball in the end zone again. This time, though, it led to interceptions and no points on the board. I guess that's kind of, I don't know, maybe the Steelers are saying, hey, don't be complaining about those field goals, because they could always be interceptions. All right, so let's look through the live chat. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I'm going to go through the live and check on your comments and questions. We got Jared Devil in. We have George Teston. George says, we are who we thought we were. Yeah, unfortunately, that seems to be the case. I mean, when you look at this team, right? You look at the teams that the Steelers have beaten this year. You're looking at the Colts. You're looking at the Falcons, the Bucks, the Bengals. And that Bengal game, it took 5 turnovers and the Bengals to lose their long snapper for the Steelers to win. Let's just be honest with it. And so that is what that was. It's not looking good, y'all. It really isn't. This team, hasn't beaten anybody, in my opinion, and not anybody that, without any, confidently and convincingly. The teams that they have beaten are bottom barrel teams and teams that are tanking and looking for draft picks. And when you put the comparison towards the teams that are winning and winning record teams, you look at the Eagles, you look at the Buffalo Bills, you look at the Bengals the second time that the Steelers played them. You know, when this team is playing a competent opponent that is a contender, it doesn't look good. It really doesn't. This team has so many holes, and it goes beyond the offensive coordinator and beyond the defensive coordinator, in my opinion. The trenches aren't built right. You have Band-Aids in certain places, and you have a left tackle and a left guard that they struggle at time to time. And, you have a defensive line that's getting up there in age. And so it's time to build this team right. This is what it is. We're in a rebuild. How's it going, Allie? Let's see. We lost because of 3 picks by Mitch. End of story. Yeah, we did. Those picks definitely did the Steelers in. I mean, you look at it, let's just say the Steelers get field goals on 3 of those. That's 9 points. That's 23-16. Yeah, maybe the Steelers win this game, but you also have to look at the fact that, Baltimore's not just trying to run out the clock at the end either. And so, it is what it is. I just feel that this game goes beyond, squeaking out a win over a third string quarterback and a team that offensively hasn't been well this year. This team hasn't done well offensively. And it just kind of goes back to where the Steelers are. It was just piss poor. How about 3 picks, full stop? Let's not go back to Big Ben era blame searching. Yeah. Let's see. Steelers fan says game day football food was great. It sure was. We had some pulled pork and it was pretty good. Steelers Nation Australia goes, here we go, Steelers. Yeah, regardless of anything, the realization that this team is rebuilding right now and that this team is out of the playoffs more than likely. I mean, mathematically, there's still a chance, but at the end of the day, outside of that mathematical portion of it, it seems like there's only a few more games left in the season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm still going to be going, rooting them on and hoping they win every single game. And until they're mathematically out, I'm not going to give up hope that they don't make it, but hope and being realistic about the season are 2 different things. Let's see. Yep, today sucked, but I keep on, got to keep on keeping on. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What's up, Hyman G? One of the hosts of the Drunk Turkey Show. If you guys aren't watching the Drunk Turkey Show, what are y'all doing? That show's popping. Go check it out. You might see a couple familiar faces. Let's see. The poetic wordsmith says, Mitch is a trashy ass quarterback. Yeah, I was not too keen when I saw the notification come across my board that the Steelers had signed him way back when. I was like, really? I was like, man, well, I thought maybe perhaps this would be just the answer for 1 year. And then perhaps, this upcoming draft, the Steelers would draft a quarterback. They didn't. They went with a quarterback in the first round as well. And I think that kind of muddied up the waters a little bit, but at the end of the day, he's still trash, man. You're right. He's just been what he is. Let's see. Final score should have been a blowout, 3 interceptions and a blocked field goal and we lost by 2. Yeah, that's true. That is true. You would think that if the Steelers were able to put on those points and score, this would have been a significantly different answer. I mean, you're looking at a Ravens team that that threw for less than 100 yards. That's horrible. That you're holding a team down. You know what they're going to do, and you can't stop it. Maybe they should fire the Ravens offensive coordinator because they kept doing the same thing over and over again. Let's see. Steelers fan says, I can't with Pickett's playing. She gets nervous when he starts running around. Let's see. So you're telling me there's a chance? Yeah, Steelers Nation, there's always a chance. I mean, there's that opportunity, but I see it going to be that's going to be pretty difficult, especially with the AFC East playing um, as well as they have. The Steelers lost to all those teams in the AFC East, and so tiebreakers are going to be few and far in between. It's going to be a tough road to get in. If the Steel, I'm not one of those that says I don't want to see the Steelers get in because then they're going to get capped in the first round. If the Steelers had an opportunity to get in, I'm all for it. I just don't think I don't think they're going to come into that opportunity. I think this very well could be Mike Tomlin's first losing year, and you know, I'm not on the fire Coach T train yet. I'm on the let's get that seat a little bit warm. Um, but at the same time, you have to, every offensive coordinator, every coach, I'm sorry, has had a losing season at one point, has had the opportunity to rebuild and retool. And Mike Tomlin hasn't had that opportunity. Now, what worries me about that is, his decision making on some of the members of the staff that he's put around him. I mean, I'm talking about the Adrian Clems of the world, the Matt Canadas of the world, uh, the Terrell Austins up to this point of the world. They've not all panned out. I mean, let's look at the last two wide receiver coaches who have, you've had some issues. Ben Roethlisberger was pissed off last year because the wide receivers weren't where they were supposed to be at. This year, you had receivers running into each other in the middle of the field, things of that nature. You know, the people that he's put around him, in my opinion, haven't been the best. And so, you know, can you continue to do that and then expect success? I don't know. But I think that, the Steelers did make a name move this offseason, hiring Brian Flores. Maybe the Steelers decide this offseason to maybe give him a little bit more rings. I don't know, but it's going to be tough. I'm not on that train of firing Tomlin. I think he needs the opportunity to rebuild and the opportunity to reload and retool and build this team appropriately. Because up until this point, when you had Ben Roethlisberger, even, towards the end of his career, you weren't rebuilding. You were trying to win a championship by getting, certain pieces here and there. And you've really neglected a lot of key pieces, especially on the offensive line. And so with that being said, in my opinion, Tomlin needs to really, really just maybe rework the people that are around him, because this isn't working. This is a mediocre team across the board, and they're showing up that way on the stats and the scoreboard and the win and loss column, the whole 9 yards. Let's see. Brian Harrington says, "Hey everybody, let's see." Joseph Donovan says, "We're not good enough to make the playoffs. We would get embarrassed again like last year. We snuck in. Need a big guy to plug up the middle. We haven't had one since Hampton, number one shutdown corner." Yeah, I agree with a lot of what you're saying right there. I think the Steelers need a guy up in the middle. To me, it's like the Steelers have overcompensated on speed. They looked at the speedy linebackers, the special dime package stuff, and they've overcompensated on that speed aspect, and they're getting just pushed around. And that's just basically what I'm seeing. I appreciate that comment, because that really, really does bring that to light. OG Steeler says Mitch is trash, but it's the Rooneys are so damn cheap. That's why they got Mitch, because they paid him nothing. Should have stuck with Rudolph and drafted a quarterback in 2023. That's not gonna lie, been one of my takes. I've gotten a lot of hate for having that take, so I appreciate somebody else thinking somewhat similar. But yeah, you're absolutely right. The Rooneys are a little bit on the cheaper end. When it comes to, from what I understand, what they're paying their coaching staff around Mike Tomlin isn't the most. In fact, I think that was one of the complaints that Mike Tomlin had when they offered him the job as the head coach back in 2000, was it 7? And so, it's been a common factor, and sometimes you get what you pay for. You know what I'm saying? Let's see. And Brian says, in all reality, the season is a wash. Start preparing for next year now, developing the talent and keeping our elite players healthy. I agree. This season is a wash. I don't think the Steelers are going to go anywhere. And with that being said, I don't think you need to risk the long term health of your star players. Kenny Pickett probably shouldn't play this week. This is his second, concussion, and the last time that he had one, he didn't go through the protocol, and compared to most players in the same manner. Now, could that be because he didn't have a concussion to begin with, and it was all precautionary pulling him out against the Bucks? Maybe and perhaps. But you look at that, everybody that was entered into the concussion protocol and that wasn't allowed to um, finish the game, they didn't start off practice the following week full participant, and so he was a full participant the entire time. I think that probably changes this time around. Um, and so there's a good chance that he's not going to play. And, if you're really not in it anymore, I wouldn't risk any long term issues with him next week. Let's see. Steelers fan says our picks are going to be good in this upcoming draft. If we keep going this route, there definitely would be a good opportunity for that. Brian Brown says, so we need to keep Matt Canada, another game scoring under 20. I don't think we need to keep him anymore. I don't think Canada is completely to blame for this. He didn't throw the interceptions. He didn't throw the ball into tight coverage. He didn't stare down the receivers. He didn't throw the ball to Deontay down the sideline with safety coverage over the top, something that a quarterback should read. But at the same token, James Harrison was on Ben Roethlisberger's podcast here recently, and he was talking about how the differences between Bill Belichick as his coach and Mike Tomlin as his coach. And he said that Mike Tomlin, they had the standard or whatever in a certain way, and it was, live up to it. And with Bill Belichick, it was a lot of structure and a lot of building towards players like what they do best, right? So when they develop, a play or playbook or whatever, it's always based on what they do best, on their strengths, not on their weakness. And so it's trying to fit a scheme to the players' attributes. And then that wasn't the same with the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, Debo Harrison or James Harrison hasn't been with the Pittsburgh Steelers for a while. And so he wasn't there under Matt Canada to kind of see or to say that it's the offensive coordinators that have an inability to adapt. It was kind of a philosophy thing. That's basically what he made it seem like. It's Bill Belichick and his scheme and the way they do things is adaptability and being prepared 2 or 3 steps ahead is why they were so successful, or also the difference. And that's not how the Steelers ran or operate things. And he talked about how it used to be under LeBeau and how and why there was hardly ever, rookie players starting except for Kendrick Bell as a rookie. And so, he talks about that the plays and the scheme was so tough, and that what the Steelers do now is so much more simplified, and there's less guess, there's less confusion out there as far as going for the offense and the quarterback. And so, it could be a lot of things. It's not just Matt Canada, but with that being said, I would prefer somebody else than Matt Canada next year. I would prefer a lot of things different next year. That's for sure. Let's see. I hope we're paying Canada in Canadian currency. That's funny. Off of Facebook, Charles Shelton says, we have to get active and then start off practice and want an old corner participant so he won't be. Patrick came from Miami, so whoever's drafting needs to have his head examined because our first round picks have sucked and the problem's been there. I don't disagree with the first round picks or our first selections in the draft for the last couple of years. We can't really look at Pickett at this point because, well, he's only played a handful of games. I will say I've had my opinions and my criticisms of him, um, but I want to give him this season to see what he has. Uh, Najee Harris probably wasn't the best idea to pick a running back in the first round. You had TJ Watt, but outside of TJ Watt, around him was Artie Burns. Chase Claypool was a first selection. I know that Minka ended up, everybody says Minka was our first selection, but he really wasn't. He was selected by the Dolphins, and because he wanted to get out of there, the Dolphins made a trade that worked in our favor significantly. And so, the Steelers weren't in a position to draft Minka or a talent like him without some crazy scenario happening. And so, yeah, it is what it is. But yeah, the drafting has been an issue. This is going to be Omar Khan's first year as the general manager in the draft, so we'll get to see what kind of players he gets to put out there. And when you look at that as well, no player is safe, that's on the field because Omar Khan didn't. These aren't Omar Khan's guys; these are all Kevin Colbert's guys, and so that loyalty or whatever you want to call it isn't there for these current guys on the team. So it'll be interesting to see how Omar Khan plays it this year. Let's see. Steelers Freak says 1-16, 9-8, or a 50-20 loss in the playoffs are the same for me. It's called a Lombardi for a reason. 8 years, 1 winner, and 31 losers. Yeah, if you're not first, you're last. I get it. And in this scenario here, right now, I don't look at it that way just because of how young this offense is and you have a rookie quarterback. You have to look at things a little bit differently. You have to look at things with growth. The outcome of this season isn't going to be a favorable one. And if you're looking at just the outcome, you're not going to be happy. That's just the bottom line. But if you're looking at what the Steelers are progressing into and being able to identify the holes and the needs that they have to turn a corner and be that team that could potentially hoist up a Lombardi, that's what you're looking for here. And in my opinion, like I've said, we haven't really given Tomlin the opportunity to build the team and rebuild this team. He's not had a losing season. And so, this getting some picks and putting themselves in position to fill in these needs. I mean, let's just say the Steelers don't win every game going down the stretch. And let's just say they end up, 7-10 or 8-9. They might be in the top 13, 14 in the draft. They have the Bears second round draft. That's 3 picks, probably in the top 45. That's not too bad. That can really fill in some holes that are needed. You're looking at probably a corner, middle linebacker, and an offensive lineman with those picks. And those are all, in my opinion, significant holes that the Steelers are going to need to fill in. Devin Bush isn't coming back. That's for sure. And I don't think anybody here wants Robert Spillane to be extended to play a significant amount of time on defense. And so we're going to need a middle linebacker to come in. Now, whether that's in the draft or free agency, everybody knows that I would love to have Tremaine Edmonds from the Bills. He's a free agent this year to come on over and join his brother and the Steelers, extend Terrell Edmonds. That would be awesome. That would be a significant hole to fill, but, we'll cross that bridge when that happens. Who says that, he doesn't extend this season or get franchise tagged? It is what it is. But, you're looking at significant holes that are going to be able to get filled this offseason. And, perhaps next year we're looking at a different team. Let's see, Brian Brown. Everybody is mad at the Steelers defense. They aren't that bad. Ravens ran the ball on every team effectively. 16 points should not be enough to beat the Steelers. It really shouldn't. And in this situation, it really wouldn't have had the quarterback been smarter with the football. Had we had like Ben Roethlisberger in this game, the Steelers win this game handedly. It really is what it is. And not only does that happen, but it forces, like if the Steelers were to score those points in the first half or whatever, it would have forced the Baltimore Ravens to go away from the running game, and it would have forced them to pass the ball. And when you're looking at a third string quarterback and you're looking at obvious down and distance, you're looking at obvious pass plays, then you can play it a little bit different. The the favor then goes into the more experienced team, and you're probably seeing a different outcome. It is what it is. Let's just see. Brian says, "Dang it, Trubisky just threw another interception." Yeah, it was the Mitch show. I've said it before. One of my good buddies said he calls him Turd Biscuit instead of Trubisky, and I think I said that on Steel Nation Australia's post stream earlier. I was like, yeah, it was Mitch Turd Biscuit today. Let's see. Super Freak says, I am not happy. I had realistic expectations this year. Vegas had it right, 7-10. Yeah. Oh, you are not unhappy. Okay. I didn't have the realistic expectations. I'll be honest with you. I thought the Steelers were heading in the right trajectory. I thought that they would at least pull off 10 games this year, and that's already out the window. I started to see the writing on the wall on this season probably early. I had some hope when Kenny Pickett was thrown in, but seeing where he's at in his progression, I didn't think he was going to be a guy this year that was going to be able to catapult this team into the playoffs. Now, can he develop and become a better quarterback and, put the right pieces around him, potentially maybe even get his receiver, from college and Addison in the draft or something? Maybe he can turn the corner there and, we can get excited next year. But I didn't, seeing his performance and seeing what we were doing this year, I knew this was going to be a year to develop him. It is what it is. This was not going to be a playoff run, but don't get easier, y'all. Next year, as much as we clown on the Browns and everything else and what they have going on, but Deshaun Watson hasn't played in almost 2 years. This last few games are going to get him back in the groove of things. He's not a bad quarterback. He's not the best quarterback. He don't scare me, but he's going to make that team with, Chubb and their defense a little bit better. And, you're looking at the Bengals. I don't think they're going to be a crappy team anytime soon with Burrow under center. He's proven to be a formidable quarterback and an opponent. And so, maybe perhaps, this rivalry that we had today between the Steelers and the Ravens may not be something that's going to be too long, because I don't see the Ravens being that great of a team either. Offensively, they're not very good. They find weird ways to win, but this isn't a long-lasting, successful formula for them. There's no way I don't think they make the playoffs this year. And if they do, I think they're out the first year. I think the Bengals end up catching them and passing them for the division. They're that poor offensively, in my opinion. Let's see. No, it's not it. The Steelers are not officially eliminated. It's just that you need the Jets to lose 3 or 4. You need the Chargers to lose 3 or 4. You need so many teams to just have a debacle. It's going to be hard. Deshaun Watson is a mediocre quarterback. He definitely is, but he's got a good running back. He's got some good receivers around him, and he's able to be mobile, and the defense isn't bad either. And so what I'm saying is, they're not going to be a bottom of the barrel basement team anymore. And they're going to get better. And so I'm hoping that Deshaun Watson doesn't turn into, a form of his old self, and he continues that downward spiral and the Browns just being the Browns with that deal that they made, and just continue to be the laughing stock. But you can reasonably expect him to improve more than what he is now. And then we'll see. But yeah, this division is not going to get any easier. Lamar Jackson is a guy, he's still going through his pay thing. So who knows if he even gets paid and if they keep him. OG Steer goes, if Kenny keeps getting concussion, he's going to be out of the league real quick. Yeah, he definitely is. It's a scary situation for him at this point. It's 2 this year, and I believe he had I think they said 7 in college. And so I'm not sure if that's true. If anybody in the live chat knows that for a fact, just let me know. But I was listening to Behind the Steel Curtain. They were talking about how many he had in college. And I want to say either they said this was his 7th going back to college or he had 7 in college. Either way, that's quite a bit. And, he's not a big guy. And he's going to get, he's a lighter guy. He's a lighter frame. And so when these bigger defensive tackles, bigger defensive linemen and linebackers get a hold of him, there's that opportunity where they can, they're going to throw him down. And he's not always looking for, he's not always looking to run. So he's not really protecting himself. So when he's running in the pocket, he's looking up the field sometimes or many other times. And that kind of puts him in a vulnerable position. And so, yeah, I can definitely see where this could lead to some issues and him not being in the league very long. It's a scary situation. Can we get Von Bell from Cincinnati? And kind of a fan. I watched him play in high school football. I mean, there's a possibility. Let's see. OG Steeler says, going to the last game against Cleveland, was hoping that would be a win, and we're in. OJ Steeler, I'm going to be there too. Me and my pops are going to head out to that game. Me and my father will be there in the cold. We're in section 122. If you, say hi to us when we're out there, we'll meet up. It'll be cool. Let's see. Unfortunately, the Steelers might be the bottom of the barrel team until they find an OC. That's possible. I mean, that's possible. I'm not one to blame everything on the offensive coordinator. I think execution has a lot to do with why this team has been poor. There's been penalties. There's been, in this game, you had the quarterback not making the best decisions and throwing to the wrong team. That's not on the OC. Deontay Johnson got lucky on another one where he could have been flagged for a false start. But fortunately, the defensive guy moved at the same time, and the refs didn't see Deontay Johnson flinch. You have those type of situations. Those aren't blamed on the offensive coordinator. You have an offense tailored for one quarterback, and you practice that throughout training camp and developmental processes or developmental procedure in football or in training camp, however you want to say it. And then that gets uprooted 5 games in, to put in a rookie quarterback. That's going to limit your offense. I've seen growth and development with this offense. I've seen this team get better throughout the weeks. I anticipated that there would be a couple games. I think there's probably going to be another one where this team doesn't play very well and they have a bad game. And that's because they're a young team. When you have a young team, they make young mistakes. And so, yeah, the offensive coordinator can go. I just don't know if you're looking at the same personnel with the same situations, the offensive coordinator changes much, to be honest with you. Let's see. If the team needs a new line, D lineman to include edge, 1, if not 2 inside linebackers and shut down corner, tall order to fill in one season. I have accepted it will be a 2 to 3 rebuild with draft luck. Maybe. I mean, the Steelers have put themselves also in a position to use the free agency in a way that they haven't. They've not restructured deals or any of those type of things for the last couple of years. And in my opinion, that might be because, you get a lot of draft picks this year. You're going to have some cap space next year. You have, you didn't use all your money this year, so some of that gets rolled over into next year. And you still have the ability to massage these caps to pick up some free agents. So, maybe I think that if the Steelers think they have their quarterback, then they're going to try to fill everybody around them to make a run early. And so, if the Steelers think that Kenny's the guy or the guy that can, hoist the Lombardi, then I anticipate the Steelers going all out and whether it be in draft or in free agency, pick up some players and some pieces to put them around them. Oh, hey, it's my dad. I didn't know you were OJ Steeler. All right, Brian Brown, look at the points per game since Canada took over. If it walks like a duck, yeah. Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I don't. I think that I just think there's more to this than just the offensive coordinator. You're looking at in my opinion. So last year, you have to only look at the last 2 years, right? Last year, in my opinion, that was Ben Roethlisberger's offense. That's why it looks so much like Randy Land, because it was his offense. He's a 40-year quarterback. You're not going to change much of what he likes to do and what he wants to do. Maybe the language changes. Maybe there's some little things here and there as far as pre-snap movement, but for the most part, yeah, it's going to stay the same. Now, you look into this year and you look at how much changes were happening in the key position of the quarterback. You can't expect there to be a dynamic change or that huge shift in play that quickly, in my opinion. And so that's why I don't blame him 100%. And then when you also have like the penalties, the holding, the quarterback throwing the ball to the opposite team, the pre-snap penalties, the false starts, things like that, I don't blame those on the quarterback. I mean, on the offensive coordinator. That's on the execution, on the players. And that kind of goes back down to discipline. And in my opinion, the disciplinary person isn't the offensive coordinator. It's the head coach. And so that falls on the head coach to not having his team prepared and disciplined enough to go out there and perform the task and do the mental stuff correctly, to do to be in the right spot, to not flinch, to not have a false start, things of that nature. And so, a lot of times as well, when you have a team that gets a lot of penalties, it could be because their skill level just isn't to the level of the opposition, and such they need to take advantage of certain things, or they get called for certain penalties because they need to use those things to not get beat up. Let's see. But good. I mean, like I said, could the Steelers get another offensive coordinator and it'd be different? Potentially. I mean, maybe the philosophy just isn't the right, where it needs to be. There's a lot of things that I don't like that Canada does, like outside pitches to Najee Harris. That doesn't work. It don't work. The tight end, screen right behind, or the tight end pitch doesn't work. And so, yeah, are there some things that could go another different way? I agree. I just don't think that there's an offensive coordinator out there that would have made that much of a difference with everything that panned out the way it panned out. Let's see. Art has to be willing to get off the free agent wallet and pick up proven studs from other teams. Same with coaches. I agree with that. 100%. 100%. I agree with that. Let's see. What's going on, Claude? So Charles Shelton said, what happened to Calvin Austin, the third from Memphis? He ended up going down with a foot issue. He ended up having surgery right before the season started, which ended up with him on IR at the beginning of the season. Or he went on IR in the beginning of the season, then had season-ending surgery while on IR after his 21-day window to return had occurred. So he had a setback. Hopefully he'll be there next year. But Calvin Austin, I think that he plays Deontay Johnson's position a little bit better than he would play any other position on the field. He's not going to replace Pickens. He's not going to. I don't think he's a guy that's going to be in the slot. So he would have to be an X receiver. And when you have an X receiver, like we would definitely not have to have Deontay on the field. We'd have to remove him, and then perhaps Calvin Austin can come in, which I'm not opposed to. I'm not a big fan of Deontay Johnson's. I'm very critical of his play. I think he didn't do bad this game, but he's a guy that I was hoping the Steelers weren't going to extend this offseason, and they did. I'll just leave it at that. Dan made a business decision to sell Steelers stock to get better players. Art could do the same. Yeah, he sure did. But we're getting a little bit long in the tooth. Let's see. I'm going to answer just a few more, and then we're going to be going out. Let's see. One can only hope. I want Canada to have success, but we've been blaming execution when the man can't drop a scoring play in the red zone is ridiculous. Maybe. I mean, the red zone has been poor. Now, red zone wasn't that bad last season, but we also had Ben Roethlisberger. So the problem was getting into the red zone last season. It was a bunch of 3 and outs. Team couldn't stay on the field. And this season, that's the way it started off. Now it's kind of gone a little bit differently. But, Mike Tomlin said it best, when you have Ben Roethlisberger there, he's one of those guys that didn't get a little tight. I can't say it as high pitched as he did, but this team does. It just does. And that's on the players. You have to have guys that are clutch. That was one thing Ben was he was clutch. Let's see. The Steelers are not one OC away from a ring, so I go there. The only way they will get a stud OC is if their current state is if Art is willing to pay for him. Yeah. OG Steeler says we should have paid or pay Juju instead of Johnson. I agree. I think that Juju, he was clutch, man. He caught the ball. He was able to do things after the catch. He was physical. He had the heart. And you put Claypool, you put Deontay Johnson, and you put Juju Smith-Schuster. Give me Juju all day. At this point, Juju was versatile. He could play in the inside. He could play on the outside. It's unfortunate, and he was a guy that loved being a Steeler. He was a guy that did not want to leave. Now I get it. He was part of the TikTok crew, and he did those things, and he was dancing on stuff and dancing on teams' logos, and I didn't like that very much. But the production was there. He had the heart. He was a guy that wanted to be a Steeler and wanted to win for the city, and it's just he's doing things with Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs, and he's a player out there. Yeah, I'm not opposed to the Steelers getting a receiver early next year either. Go down, maybe get Jordan Addison. He did really well with Kenny Pickett. His quarterback this year at USC just won Williams just won the Heisman Trophy Award. He could be the next, this could be the next Burrow, Chase, Pickens, Addison. I'd like to see it. All right, this is going to be the last one, guys, and then we're going to be calling it at night. Claude Bishop goes, I am a Tomlin fan, but I'm putting Mitch in front of Mason was his first mistake, and not having them prepared for the run after Atlanta ran on them last week is unacceptable. Yeah, that was a huge concern. I mean, we talked about it earlier this week. We talked about how Atlanta was able to run on the ball, and that this was a team, the Baltimore Ravens, that were going to try to use the same formula. They were a team that had the ability to run, and were a team that weren't going to get away from the run. And that, the Steelers had a chance. It was going to be in the trenches. And today they just dropped the ball. It is what it is. They dropped the ball. They had the opportunity. I think the offense was moving the ball up and down the field well until Mitch just threw those interceptions. If he would have just, and I know it's hindsight and everything else, but those interceptions don't happen, and that blocked field goal doesn't happen. This is a different game. And I'll tell you what, man, Ben Roethlisberger is definitely missed more now than ever, in my opinion, because he had his games where he threw interceptions and stuff like that, but he could carry a team, and we haven't seen that yet, in my opinion. We haven't seen that. We haven't seen a quarterback have that ability since he's left. And so that's all I got for you guys today. I want to thank everybody in the live chat. Thank everybody that commented and participated. All the new folks in the live chat. Please hit that like and subscribe button, guys. We're trying to climb on up, get more subscribers and move this thing further. Please help us grow the channel by sharing this content to your friends and family that are Steeler fans. But with that being said, guys, I'm Daniel J. This is State of the Steelers. Steelers lose, pretty much out of the playoffs, but we got a few more games before there's no more football. So let's just try to enjoy the last month of football. That being said, I'm Daniel J. Peace out, guys.